Hello, all the viewers and students who are watching this session on GMAT hacks. 5 GMAT hacks that can help you save 10 plus minutes on the GMAT and boost your score by 50 plus points. Now, my inspiration behind the session is to help you guys understand what are the key things that can actually get you that additional edge in the test. Now, I'm not sure how many of you really know this, but as per GMAT, more than 50% people who take retakes on the GMAT don't really improve their scores. And that is a very shocking fact, very telling fact. More than 50% of the students don't improve their score despite putting in additional hours for practice, additional hours for preparation. Now, you might think, then what is the point of really taking a retake if more than 50% students are failing? But what you need to understand is why are the other students who are getting a 700 plus score getting there? What is that differentiates the students from the other students? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what are the GMAT hacks, what are the hacks on Quant and DI, which can give you that additional 10 minutes and score extra 10 or 50 points in that time. So a quick overview of the things that you're going to talk about, the 5 hacks that you're going to talk about. So I'll just go into a larger screen to help you understand this. So overall, if you look at, like, this is the quick overview of the things that we're going to talk about today. So if you look at everything over here, you will realize that if you are focusing on this 5 GMAT hacks, if you use smart quant methods, you use learn art of picking numbers, you start solving logically rather than just mathematically, or you start doing the right reading style in the TPA MSR questions, or you use the top scorers timing strategy. These are the 5 hacks that I'm going to talk about, and this is the potential time saving that each of these hacks can actually get you. And in the next 30 to 40 minutes, you will actually see this converting. These are real numbers that my students have achieved through practice, through effort in the right direction. So if you are able to realize this entire saving fully, you can even save up to 25 minutes in the quant and DI sections combined. And if you are only able to achieve this with 40% efficiency, because obviously we have to plan for like less efficiency also, even then you will get to 10 plus minutes of extra time saving in the test, and that can easily boost your score by 50 points. In fact, more than that. That's like gold. 10 minutes extra is like gold in the real test on the GMAT. Okay, so learn a lot of these hacks. This is just a high level overview. We will get started immediately into the first part of this. But yes, guys, feel free to share any questions. Like, I'm not keeping a Q&A in the end. The Q&A is right as we proceed. So if you have any questions, any thoughts, any doubts, feel free to just drop it in the chat. I'm more than happy to take it up. So don't hesitate before this. Okay, so let's get started with the first thing, the first hack, the smart quant methods. And again, we will learn this through some examples. Let's look at some examples. So let's start with the question itself. This is the first question in front of you guys. I want you to take an attempt at this question. Give it about a couple of minutes, and then we are going to discuss this. Let's see how you solve it, and let's see what is a smarter way of solving it possible. All right, guys, those of you who have solved it, about close to 2 minutes I've given. Those of you who have solved it can post your answers in the chat here. Feel free to do that. Okay, so you can start posting your answers, and in 30 seconds, I'll start the explanations as well. Okay, question says maybe C. Okay, so there's a C with a maybe around it. Ishan is confident, I guess. Ishan is saying C. Good, like it. Okay, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Vivek says it's 10. It should be B. Okay. Now, how many of you found it easy? Like those of you who found this question easy, just write easy in the chat. Those of you found it hard, write hard. If you found it like on and up, it's average. Like it's not too hard, not too easy. I don't find it complex. Feel free to write average or medium, whatever. I would like to see how many of you found it actually easy, medium, and hard, just to kind of see your thoughts. Okay. Great. Kristen says that I compared the ratios and should be that. I would say medium. So this is one of the more complex questions that are there in work rate time. I would say, again, some of you might say medium. Many people struggle with these questions because there are multiple men, multiple women involved. Now, when you work with work rate time questions, a lot of people have this habit of taking work as one and taking rate as 1 over time, 1 by t. So if let's say someone is completing work in 10 days, they take the rate as 1 over 10, and they don't realize that actually complicates their life a lot. So in work rate time questions, you can always do one of the two things. You can either assume work or assume rate of one individual. If you're assuming rate, you can assume the rate of one individual to be any number that you like. And when you're assuming work, if you're assuming work, you should assume it as a number which is actually a common multiple, or you can say LCM of the time of multiple people. And again, there are a lot more angles attached to it, but the idea is I'm strongly against taking work as one. I recommend my students to take work as an LCM because that just makes your calculations easy, helps you save, if not more, at least 1 minute per question. And in many questions, it can save you 2 to 3 minutes. And let's see that in this question. So what I always recommend is that you should assume either work or rate. But assuming work is the best in most of the scenarios. In this kind of a question where you have multiple men and multiple women, the best thing to do is just assume rate of one of the people. Now, if you notice in this particular question, you have 4 men taking the same time as 3 women. So I know the time of taken by them is same. If the time taken by them is same, their rates are same. So I'm taking M as the rate of 1 man and W as the rate of 1 woman, just for the sake of denotion over here, just to denote the rates for a moment. Okay. So I get 4M is equal to 3W. I know that the rate of 4 men is equal to 3W. Now, that's also another very logical inference. If you think logically, you can come to this inference very, very easily. Now, if 4 men is equal to 3 women, what I can do is, if I'm smart enough, I can assume the rate of 1 man to be 3 units per day. So if I assume the rate of 1 man to be 3 units per day, what you will realize is, if you put 3 over here, then 4 into 3 becomes 3 into W. So the rate of 1 woman will automatically become 4 units per day. And please mind my words, guys. I'm not assuming the rate of both men and women. I'm just assuming the rate of men. And given this equation, I'm automatically getting the rate of women as 4. Now, once I have the rate of both men and women, what I can do is I can go back to my initial sentence and you put the rate over there. If there are 10 men and 5 women who are working for 6 days, in 1 day, these people will do this much work, 10 into 3 plus 5 into 4. And in 6 days, these people will do this much work. Now, if you add this, this is 20, 30, this is 20, and adding it 50 into 3. So I'll get 300 as my total work. Okay, so 300 is my total work in this particular question based on the rate that I have assumed. Okay, now all I need to do is find how much time would 3 men and 4 women take. Now 3 men and 4 women are basically same as 3 into 4 plus 4, 3 into 3, because men's rate is 3 and women's rate is 4. So it is same as saying that they will do 3 into 3 plus 4 into 4 units of work in a single day. So I can say they will be doing 9 plus 16, 25 units of work in a single day. Is that correct? All of you are with me, guys? Right? I know that these people are doing 25 units of work in a single day. Now, the total work they are supposed to do, time, is work by rate. So the total work they are supposed to do is 300 units and 25 they are doing in a single day. So they will take only 12 days to complete the work. Just 12 days to complete the work. Now, this is a very, very straightforward method. If you know how to use it, you apply this method, you will be able to solve this question in 1 minute maximum. 1 minute, 1 minute, 10, 20 seconds, 30 seconds for reading, 30 seconds for solving. It doesn't take more than that. Any other method you use, if you try to equate, if you try to form equations in form of m and w and take the variables to solve it, again, it's the same method similar to this one, but it will take you much longer. So it's much smarter in work rate time questions to assume work or rate. Okay, and please understand, guys, this is not a subject matter session. In fact, that's what my next slide says. So I'm not discussing a specific topic. I'm rather discussing hacks that you need to kind of build upon, learn to get to the score. So obviously I'll be covering these methods at a slightly faster pace. Like I'm also not covering all different examples, but the method that I just talked about, assuming work or assuming rate of an individual, that is something we can use in every single work rate time question that exists in official domain and save at least 1 minute in each of those questions without any second doubt. Okay, that's the best method to solve questions. So you need to learn these kind of methods, and there are so many other methods. Like let's take an example of another topic. Let's take an example from algebra, right? Let's take a question on series. Okay, so you have this question in front of you. Again, I'm going to give you about 2.5 minutes to solve this, because obviously there's no point of me solving it directly if you are not taking an attempt at it. So I want you to take 2.5 minutes, solve this, and please don't answer the questions in the chat. Don't tell your answers in the chat because others are also solving with you. Okay, so I'm going to be on mute for the next 2.5 minutes. All the best, guys. All right, guys, nearly 2 minutes. So if you want, you can start posting your answers in the chat here. All right, so I see some of you saying B with a question mark, no idea, but let's try with B. So Christian, are you saying, okay, not sure, but you're taking a guess at B? Okay, I think that's what you mean. Okay, what about others? And do tell me, like, how do you find this question? Like, is it easy? Is it medium? Is it hard, very hard? What do you think about this? Do let me know your thoughts. And we'll start in just another, what, 15 seconds maybe? Yeah. So how did you find this question? Would like to see whether you found it easy, hard, because obviously, like, if all of you found it easy or medium, I don't need to go too much in deep. I hope you will be able to manage this. Okay, D is what Harshima says. Great work, Harshima. That actually is the correct answer. Krishnan says it's hard. I don't know how to do it. Okay, yeah. This is, in my opinion, it's one of the more complex, not the most complex, but more complex questions in series that you can possibly get on the GMAT. Okay, so let's get started with this. I tried with the sum formula. Venuja says, yeah. So there are multiple ways to do this question, and generally, when people think of sum of terms in arithmetic progressions, they use these two formulas, right? Like the first one is like n by 2 plus into 2a plus n minus 1 into d. The second one is n by 2 times first term plus last term. Now, the first formula that you see on the screen is actually the most commonly used formula. But I strongly recommend against using this formula ever for solving any arithmetic progression question, because it's just too complicated as a formula to use. It takes a lot of effort to use. In fact, there is a much easier, faster, simpler way. And I believe this, and I teach this to my students, that you know what is the fastest way of solving a question in GMAT? The fastest way of solving a question in GMAT is to make it simple. If you make the question simple, if you just spend the time to make the question simple, or you spend the time before the test to learn things which help you make the question simple, your life will be very sorted. You'll never have issues with the questions on the test. You'll always be able to do really, really well on the test. So it is very important to keep it simple. So what I recommend always is that you should not use any of these two formulas. Rather, you should use the mother formula from which both these formulas come. And the mother formula is that sum of terms is n into average. Okay, average of n terms. But I will not write it like that. I will just represent that in a slightly different way. I will say that sum of n terms of an arithmetic progression is number of terms multiplied by median of n terms of the AP, of the arithmetic progression. Because in the arithmetic progression, median is same as the average. Now, why I'm using the median? There's a reason behind it. If you turn the average to a median, you just have to link that median to a specific term, because median is the term in the center of the arithmetic progression, right? If you're looking at n terms, let's say you're talking about first 5 terms of a series, then sum of first 5 terms, I can write it as 5 times median of the first 5 terms. Now, the median of the first 5 terms is the term right in the center of the first 5, which is going to be the third term. So what I am doing is I'm essentially converting the sum of the first 5 terms to a term itself. I'm doing a one-on-one mapping between a term and a sum. Term and a sum. So it becomes very easy for us to then solve questions. And that's why I always recommend treat this as your first choice formula. And again, you need to have different methods always in your head, because in some questions, the second choice formula, which is the one on the top, like first term plus last term, could make more sense. And in which cases does that make more sense? That makes more sense when you know the first term and the last term in a sequence. It's given to you in a question step. Then it's best to kind of use the second choice formula. But the first choice formula makes a lot more sense to use in general if you get more complex questions like this one. So I'm really happy to hear, Harshima, you found the question to be easy, but in my understanding, that is definitely, this one is definitely not an easy question. It is at least a medium hard level question, and you can see this because again, not many people were able to answer that also in 2 minutes. This question usually takes people 3+ minutes to solve, because there's a lot of calculation to be done if you actually go with the first formula over here, this formula, which most people use to solve it, because just to write it and solve it takes a lot of time. Now, how do I make my life easy? By using the first choice formula n into median formula. So let's get into it, right? Let's get into the question directly. So this is the formula. If I find the sum of first 5 terms, I can say that is 5 into median of first 5 terms. Correct? We just discussed that. So in this particular use case, I'm just bringing it to the left. I know that the sum of first 5 terms of the AP is 25. That is already given to me. So if the sum of first 5 terms is 25, and I can write sum of first 5 terms as 5 into A3, and I know that is 25, then I can easily deduce from there that A3 is nothing but 5. Okay, now I have the third term of the series with me. Now I can do the same with the second information which is given, that the sum of first 11 terms is 154. So sum of first 11 terms is 154. Now using this formula, if I write S11, that would be 11 times median of the first 11 terms. Now how do I find the median of the 11 terms? You can think of it visually, but the best thing is to do n plus 1 by 2. N plus 1 by 2 is always the median of n terms. So if I do 11 plus 1 by 2, I will understand that S11 is actually 11 times A6, and which is what I've written over here. Now once you do that, you will get A6 as 14. Okay, and I'm again giving a disclaimer. I usually teach this in my one-on-one sessions with my students in a lot longer period. I'm trying to do that in a very short span of time because I'm trying to teach you multiple things in the same session. So please bear with me. And if you don't understand anything, it's at a little fast pace. So you can always rewatch the video, pause it, watch it at a slower pace, do your math, and you'll understand everything because I've given everything that you need to understand this on the slide here. Okay, so S11 is 11 times A6, which is given as 154 in the question itself. So if I calculate A6, that will be 154 divided by 11. I can do that and I will get A6 as 14. Okay, now comes the best part. So they are asking me to find the sum of first 19 terms. So what do we need to find? Sum of first 19 terms. Now what will be the sum of first 19 terms? Let me actually hide it. What will be the sum of first 19 terms? Can anyone tell me in the chat here, guys? According to this formula, let's see how many of you have gotten this formula, gotten hold of this formula. What will be the sum of first 19 terms as per this formula? Okay, and feel free to write in English. Like you don't have to worry about, okay, how do I type A something there? That's okay. I'll understand that. What, according to you, will be the sum of first 19 terms? 19 times 8, 10. Perfect. 19 times 8, 10, right? So now, if I want to find the sum of first 19 terms, all I need to do is find the 10th term. And the beauty is, I already have the third and the sixth term. Okay. Now, how do I find the 10th term? There are two ways to do it. One, you can go the regular method. You can write down this as A1, A plus 2D is equal to 5. In this case, you can say it's K or whatever. And you can write this as A plus 5D is equal to 14. And sorry, not plus 14 is equal to 14. And then solve from there. You can always do that solving part. The other way and the more logical way, and I always push my students to think logically, and obviously it depends on their capabilities also, like how strong they are in logical thinking versus mathematical thinking. Those who are strong at mathematical thinking, I generally recommend them to do that. But if I find my students who are logically sharp, I ask them to think logically, because when you think logically, you are able to make it much more simpler for yourself. You don't have to rely on equations, and you're not kind of caged into a certain thought process. You're free to use your logic much more openly. Now, if you use your logical reasoning in an AP, if you go ahead any number of terms, that is the number of times you're adding the common difference. So if you're moving from first term to the second term, you're just moving one term forward, you will add the common difference only once. But if you add from first term to the third term, you're moving two terms forward. So if you're moving two terms forward, you will add twice the common difference. That's the basic understanding, logical understanding in an AP. So if I'm moving from A3 to A6, I'm going 3 terms forward, right? A3 to A6 is 3 terms forward. So I can say 3D is nothing but 9, which is the difference between 14 and 5. Okay, and I can get D equal to 3 from there directly. I don't need to find A. Okay, but those of you who found this find this difficult, as I said, if you are better with math, what you can simply do is you have this equation, you have this equation, subtract both of them. If you subtract these equations, you will automatically get 3D is equal to 9. Okay, but the only thing is, if you use logic, you don't need to write the equations. But anyway, you can get that and get the value of A also from there. D is equal to 3. You can get the value of A also from there. Now, I know that D is equal to 3, and I'm going from A6 to A10. A6 to A10 means I'm going to add 4D or K, whatever you want to call it. Here they are saying it's K. But yes, I'm just using the common use term, which is D for a common difference. So I'm going 4 terms forward. So I'll have to add 4 times D. Now I know D is 3. So I can just replace it with 3. So I'll have to add 12 to 14. So this will become 14 plus 12, which is 26. So my sum will be 19 times 26, which is 494, which is same as 20 times 26 minus 1 times 26, which is easier to calculate. But yes, you can do regular multiplication also, whatever you prefer to do. Okay, so 494 is my answer. Okay, now this method that I have told you, this approach to use sum, has to be used generally as a first choice. In some cases, as I said, the second choice formula is better. And then there are some special cases also where they are asking for sum of first and odd numbers. Those kind of questions are different questions. But in general, for AP questions dealing with sum and terms, this is the fastest way of solving. You will be able to solve this question using this methodology. Obviously, once you master it, not today. You're just understood it today. You have to master it as well. Once you master it, you'll be able to apply this under a minute. Trust me. 30 seconds to read the question, understand the question, 1 minute to apply this. This is a 1.5 minute question for you. And if you go ahead and use the first formula, which is 2a plus n minus 1 into d into n by 2, trust me, you solve this question, time yourself, you will definitely take 3 or 3.5 minutes to solve this question. And that was one of the biggest reasons why most of you were not able to solve this, basically, in that time that I gave you. Because that formula takes a lot more calculations, is much more difficult, and that's why it's difficult to apply. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to learn better methods for several topics, because GMAT questions can come from any topic. And the good thing is it can be learned for a lot of topics: compound interest, divisibility, permutation, probability, sets, inequalities, weighted averages, even odd numbers, distance, speed, percentages, and many more. But these are some of the areas where you will see a lot of better, more advanced quantitative methods. What you need to understand is that you're not in school anymore. Okay, GMAT is a time test, it's an aptitude test. So you don't, if you're still following very mathematical bookish methods to solve questions, it's not going to take you to the score that you want to get to, because you are giving unnecessary time to questions which can be solved much better, not faster, much better. And your potential time saving, even if it is a 1 minute per question, you see there are so many topics that I'm talking about here. Obviously, I've covered a couple of examples which are not even mentioned on the slide. There are a lot more that I have covered in some of my other sessions, and I cover this with my students who I work with personally. I take them through these methods to help them learn and become smarter. So even if you are able to apply this method on 7 questions out of 21 questions of quant, which is very, very possible, you can save 1 minute. And I'm assuming just 1 minute per question, because in many questions, you will even save 1.5 minutes. In some questions, you might save 2 minutes also. But if I assume 1 minute per question as well, 7 questions, you will be able to save 7 minutes over there. And that is this first part, guys. And again, please understand, some of you might not be, many of you might not be able to realize this entire saving fully. So that's why I titled this webinar, like session, not saving 25 minutes. I said saving 10 minutes. Because even if you realize this at 40% efficiency with all the buffers in place, 10 minutes is something which you can easily save by following all these hacks that I've mentioned over here. Okay. Now, you might think that if these methods are so good, then why are not many people talking about it? One thing which is very fundamental, and I want you to understand this, that a very recent change, now you might say this has happened over 2 years back almost, but a very recent change, still 2 years is a very small time in front of GMAT. That one change that has happened is that GMAT has moved from the old classic version to the GMAT Focus edition. But still, there are most of the posts that you will see on forums or recommendations, they are still there with the old format in mind, because there was like a plethora of content for that session, like that time of the test. And many tutors have also not tuned their thought process for the new test format. And what I'm trying to say here is, let me arrive to that point. Earlier, in the old version of GMAT, 51 used to be like a perfect score in quant, like 100 percentile score. No one used to get beyond 51 in the test. And 49 used to be the 73rd percentile. So if a person had to move from 49 to 51, which is 73rd percentile to 100 percentile, their total score in the test would only go up by 20 points. So there was very less incentive for people to actually do extra on quant and save extra time or get better at quant, because the max that they can get is 20 points extra. 73rd percentile is something where most people were able to reach with decent amount of effort. I'm not saying it was an easy score anyway, but most people were able to reach there. But now with GMAT Focus, what has happened is, this is the scorecard that you see, a percentile comparison chart that I have shown over here on the left hand side. It very clearly shows that DI Quant 82 is 76th percentile to 100 percentile. Now there are 8 score bands which are there, not 8, 9 actually. In the previous edition, there was just 3 score bands. And because of that, the maximum score increase could be only 20 points. But now you can actually, by moving these same bands, and understand this, guys, percentile means the relative difficulty is same. So by moving 23, like from 75th percentile to 100 percentile, you can get 60 points extra. Now let me make it easier for you to understand. Let's assume your per percentile jump, 1 percentile jump takes you 2 hours of effort. Let's assume that. Again, that could take someone 1 hour of effort, that could take someone 3 hours of effort. But I'm just taking one assumption here, that on an average, it takes 2 hours of effort to get 1 percentile jump. So old GMAT, if you wanted to jump by 25 percentile, you had to put in 50 hours of effort for only 20 points extra. Okay. Now in the GMAT Focus edition, the edition that we have right now with us, the same 50 hours of effort can get you 60 points extra. That is what you need to understand. So the importance of learning this more smarter, better techniques to solve quant questions is much more relevant for the GMAT Focus. And even at GMAT Viz, we have been giving more importance to this with the GMAT Focus edition coming in. We are training our students to use much better methods, as now the need of the hour is to actually use smarter methods. You can't stick to the textbook traditional methods of solving questions, because you have a lot more leeway in quant to actually get a high score on the GMAT. So if you're looking at that, this is something which is very, very important. Now with that, let's come to the second hack, the art of picking numbers. Okay, so be with me, guys. I'm definitely going to talk about DI as well in another 10 to 20 minutes. We're going to get to the DI part, and I'll help you understand how you can save 10 minutes on DI alone with just 2 hacks. But yes, if you realize it fully, even if you realize it at 50% level, you can get 5 minutes extra on the DI section by those hacks. But yes, let's focus on art of picking numbers. Now this is something which can also help you in DI, by the way. But let's take some examples. Let's start with that. And nothing better than an official question to start with. So you have the question with you. 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes to solve this one as well. All the best, guys. I'm going to be on mute. All right, guys, close to 2 minutes have been over, more than 2 minutes actually. So if you you can start putting your answers in the chat. More than happy to see them. Okay. So if you have the answers with you, if you have solved it, just feel free to put the answers there. Okay, so Krishnan has even shared his understanding. Good work, Krishnan. Yashna, Vivek, Krishnan, all of you are going with E. No one for other options. Rishika has joined them. Good. Great, guys. And I hope, guys, you are liking this session. You're understanding the strategies that we're talking about. You're learning the strategies and liking it. If you like it, please give a thumbs up to this video and do definitely share it with your friends who are also prepping for the GMAT. And in case you want my help with the GMAT prep, feel free to reach out to us. Like we have the email ID on the screen, and there's a link to schedule a call on my calendar. If you want to, in the description below, I've also posted in the chat over here, so you can block a call in case you want any help with your GMAT prep. But anyway, let's get back to this question. So I see only Rishika is the last one with the answer. What about others? Okay, by the way, how was this question, guys? Like, how did you find this question? Was it easy, medium, hard? According, like, obviously, this is the third question that we are doing for the day, and this is the first official question of the lot that we are doing. Now, this is a very interesting question. I remember I saw this question for the first time when I was doing a test live with one of my students. I do that sometimes to kind of help them understand where they are going wrong with the timing strategy and the test taking strategy and all of that. And this question popped up. And I still remember that student took 7 minutes to solve this question and still got it wrong. 7 minutes. Okay. Now, since you have done it, I'm not reading it. I'm just going to write the equation. So what we can do here is, let's assume the expected price to be P. Then I can say that the price that he paid was P plus 0.2. Okay. Now, 9 divided by P minus 9 divided by P plus 0.2 is 0.5, right? Because he was expecting to get half pounds extra, but he ended up getting half pounds less, basically. Now, many of you, if you write down this equation, either you write it down like this, or you can also write down the equation like this. If you assume P and Q as price and quantity, then you can also write it like this. Doesn't matter which form you write it. If you really go ahead and try and solve this equation over here, trust me, guys, you will be making a mess of it. And that's what that student particularly did. He spent 7 minutes because he was a math guy, scientist by profession. So he was like, okay, let me form an equation. I'm really good at forming equations. I do this every single day. And he formed a quadratic equation and tried to solve it. If you do that, it will be messy, and even if you do it right, it will kill your time unnecessarily. So I'm of the opinion, and I teach this to my students, that you should never really solve a quadratic equation, at least if it is a word problem that is leading to a quadratic equation. If it's an algebra which is leading to quadratic equation, you can still solve it, that's fine. But if it's a word problem leading to a quadratic equation and you have the answers in the options, it's best to use the options. Be smart about it, guys. Don't be don't go with the flow. Be smart about it. So the question is asking us, how much did Bob spend per pound for the salad? So they are asking us the value of P plus 0.2, and this is also something which you have to be very careful about, that they are not asking for the value of P, they are asking for the value of P plus 0.2. So P plus 0.2 is given in the options. Now, which option should I pick? Now, I was thinking, if I pick the first one, for example, P plus 0.2 is 1.8. That means P is 1.6. Now, I can very clearly see 9 is not easily divisible by 1.6. It will lead to fractional numbers, which are very tricky. I didn't want to do that. So I said, I will put this on hold. And this is another thing which you need to understand. If you are using options, if you are using numbers or options, you are using it to save time, not to kill time. So don't just go blindly and start using any option that comes in front of you. Be smart about it. So if I see 1 and 1.8, that can divide 9, but 1.6 doesn't. So I don't want to work with that. I'll put it on hold. I'm not saying that's the wrong answer. All I'm saying is that put it on hold. Okay. Now let's go for the second one. If I go for 1.85, 1.65 is what I get here. Again, even worse. I don't want to do with this. Same reason for this, I'll put it on hold. Same reason, this also I'll put it on hold. So I'll start with this itself. Because if I put 2 here, I get P as 1.8. and that is 1.8 and 2 both will divide 9. So I'll take that bet and I will check whether I get 0.5 on the right. If I get 0.5 on the right, it's perfect, right? So I'll just do that. 9 by 1.8 is 5. 9 by 2 is 4.5. You subtract them, I get 0.5. Voila, this is what I wanted, right? 0.5 is my answer, is the value that I wanted. So E works, right? So guys, learnings. What are your learnings from this question? Let me see if you have been able to draw the right learnings. What are your learnings? And I'm at least looking at 3 important lessons. 3 important lessons I talked about. Let's see who gets it right. Who has those 3 lessons in the right place? I've gotten all 3 of them. I would like to hear from you. What are your learnings from this question? And this is a hard official GMAT question. Those of you who found it easy or medium, great job, guys. Like if you find a hard question easy or medium, definitely you're at a high skill level. But this is a hard GMAT official question. People have, on an average, when I give these questions to students, they take 4+ minutes to solve this. But if you use the options, you'll be able to solve it much faster. Okay, I still don't see any comments. Does that mean you haven't learned anything from this? Okay. Yashna says, make the equation first, then see the options to see if anything fits for word problems. I won't always say, Yashna, that you should always use the options for equations. No, I'll just tell you, summarize the 3 important lessons, but I would still want to see if anyone else gets that right. So keep typing, guys. Let's see if you get it right. First thing, very important, be aware during the test. Be aware during the test. You should not be going just with the flow. Okay, I have an equation, I'll solve it. No, have that presence of mind. That is very, very important. Second, if you get a quadratic equation, if it's a quadratic equation is getting formed out of a word problem and you have the answer of the value of that variable in the options, it's always best to use the options. Never, there's no point in using quadratic equation to solve it. Like I see Christian said, I solved the second grade equation. I can understand, Christian, but what you need to understand is we are not in college or school anymore. We don't get step marking. We don't. The people are not looking at our answer sheets, whether you know the method to solve it. There is no benefit of doing that. Why should I waste my time? So don't solve the equation. Even if you know how to solve the equation, it's best to use the options. And third thing, be smart about using the options. Don't blindly use, okay, 1 I'm putting, 2 I'm putting, 3 I'm putting. You have to be smart about which option is the best one to start with and pick that and start with that. And that is a very crucial skill that you need to develop, basically. And there are like many more questions on GMAT. This is just an example. If you guys are thinking, anyone is thinking that, okay, you know what, Piyush is talking about specific questions. No, I'm only talking about questions which I've seen repeating, the pattern repeating over multiple questions. Yes, Christian, this is one suitable option, makes it easier. In many questions, the first one actually fits, right? But yes, I had to go to the last one and there was only one suitable one, as you rightly said. Okay, let's take a look at another question. But understand, guys, the art of picking numbers is not just limited to using options. Many people think it's just limited to using options. Let's solve this question. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes for this one. And please don't put your answers in the chat unless I ask you to. Okay, so next 2 minutes, I'm on mute. It's all your job, guys. All the best. So Vishan already answering this. I wanted to hold on to this for a little longer, but anyway, since she has started, if you guys already solved it, you guys have already solved it. Feel free to post your answers in the chat. And again, do let me know if you find it easy, medium, or hard. Some people find this question really hard because it's like cheating type of a question, that what is the real weight he's selling, and all of those things kind of become confusing for many people. So as I'll answer your question, I'll try to like I've shared my intuition behind that method, but yeah, definitely I'll come back to that again. Okay, Jan is the only one who has solved it. What about others? Tough nut to crack or easy? What do you think? Christian joins Ishan. He also says it's C. Good. Okay. 6 on 20. 6 over 20, you mean to say 6:20 is the ratio? That's not in the options. But anyway, let's get started in the interest of time. Again, there is so much that I want to cover today. Gonna be a little longer session, but yeah, I'm sure you get a great value out of it. You'll learn a lot of things today. Great. So let's start with that. So shopkeeper buys rice at B kg dollars per kg and sells it for S dollars per kg. Now there's one way to solve this question, which is when you work with variables. And again, I'm not showing you that because the session is about GMAT hacks. Remember, it's not about using traditional methods. It's about using better methods, smarter methods. And I'm very strong proponent and believer in the fact that if you try and solve word problem basics means ratio, proportion, profit and loss, percentage questions using numbers. It's almost always possible to solve. Like 70 to 80% questions you can solve, and only 20-30% questions you need actually variables to solve them. And there is a way to differentiate that too. Okay, but most of it you learn through practice. But the idea is that you should push yourself to use numbers. And Christian says easy with trying values, really difficult with variables. Yes, exactly. Questions become much easier if you try working with numbers. I'll come to the science of it also, the reasoning behind that also. But let's start. So what I would say is that, okay, the price is bought at B per kg. So price, and let's say the cost side of it is B, and the selling side of it, or let's say the sales side of it, is S dollars. Okay. Now he cheats while selling. Rice gives 20% less than the actual weight. Okay. So what is he selling? He's selling 8 kgs and he's saying that I'm actually selling 10. In reality, he's giving 8 kgs and he's actually selling 10. He's actually saying that I'm selling 10. So his cost is only for 8 kgs, and let's assume B to be 10. Okay. So his total cost, if you notice here, is $80. I've assumed B to be 10 here. And again, guys, whenever I assume B to be 10, remember that's a ratio. Whatever value I'm going to get here is in terms of ratio. And this question is asking for a relative value, not absolute value. So I can assume numbers here. Okay. Again, there's a lot more depth we need to get to understand that completely. Don't get confused. The idea is, if the question is focused on just finding relative values, there is no harm in using numbers in most of the cases. Okay. There could be some exceptions there, but mostly you can use numbers. And whenever you're using numbers, remember, it's like not absolute value 10, it's like 10K, something like that. All of this are ratios basically. So I'm just writing 10 here. Let's assume the cost is 10. So his total cost of the amount thing that he sold, the quantity that he sold, is $80. Now he makes a profit of 30%. Now 30% of 80 is 24. So if he makes a profit of 24, that means his revenue on sales or total sales was worth 104, right? $104 is what he realized. The total realization or revenue that he generated was 104. Now he got that money by selling 10 kgs of milk. That means that unit price would have been, basically this is quantity, unit price would have been 104 by 10, which is 10.4. Correct? Now if B is 10 and S is 10.4, what is the ratio of the two? The ratio is simply 10 over 10.4, which is 100 over 104 you can write. And whatever way you like to simplify this, you will get the answer as C. Okay. So the question becomes really simple if you pick a number rather than dealing with variables. Because if you deal with variables, it will make your life complicated. You'll have to write Q and then think of, okay, when he cheated, what did he really sell? Then you have to think of 0.8 Q, multiply that with B, do a lot of math. Even just writing that equation will take you a lot more time. Now, the science behind this, let's understand the science behind this. Why does writing equation or working with variables take us more time? Can anyone tell me why does working with variables take more time than working with numbers? And the answer is very simple. See, in your real life, you don't write equations and variables to solve things, right? If you're going for a grocery shopping, you or go to a shop like whatever, like apparel shopping or whatever, you see there is a 20% sale going on. You don't write on paper that, okay, if the selling mark price is X or the price is X, then 20% sale means I'll be getting it for 0.8X. You don't write it like that, right? You just think of it, okay, if the price is 100, I'm getting 20 saved, so I'm getting $80, or you just use a calculator, right? But before you use a calculator, that's how you think. For every $100, I'm going to save 20. That's how you think. Because when you think of real life, you use numbers in your real life. You don't use variables in your real life. So when you start working with numbers, your mind is completely open. You are working with your full efficiency. You have complete access to your brain. But when you're working with variables, you're limiting yourself. You're limiting your brain to think in a particular box within a box. And that's why working with variables is not just more complicated. It takes extra effort. It burns a lot more energy as well. So it's always easier if you work with numbers. And this is an example, just an example. The previous one was another example of working with numbers where you're using the options. But here you're using variables like numbers yourself, and even variables can be replaced with numbers in a few cases, like these ones, where the answer is not in variable form. If the answer was in variable form, I would probably not do that. But since the answer is not in form of variables, you can do it. And again, there are some obviously problems with using numbers. Like for example, when you use numbers, it takes you a little more effort to actually learn how to use them across the board. Like using variables is more standardized, and that's why they teach it in our school, right? It's easier to use variables, even though it makes solving complicated. It's easier to teach, and that's why people teach it across the board, like in school, college. That's how you learn things. But using variables to solve, learning that is difficult. But see, if you are looking at getting to your dream B school, you need a high score. You need to put in the effort for that. I remember almost like 11, 12 years back, or almost 12 years back, in fact, 13 years back, when I was a student and preparing for my aptitude test in 2012, whenever I used to learn a better method to solve a question from my classroom or whatever, I used to come back home and resolve all the questions that I had done on that topic again using the better method that I've learned. Because I wanted to push myself to actually develop the habit of using that method as a second nature and not going back to the variables thing. Because I knew that if I could develop that method, I will be able to solve a lot of questions and save time per question. So in a worst case scenario also, in the GMAT, you will have at least 2 questions of word problem basics where numbers can be used. I'm not talking about overall questions. The total count of word problem basics is much higher. There are generally 3 to 4 questions which are like that. But I'm talking about the questions where you can easily use numbers will be minimum 2. Other word problems anywhere between 1 to 2. Algebra and number properties also you can use numbers somewhere. Many questions are like that. 2 to 3 questions of that. So easily 1 minute per question you can save across 5 questions minimum, and that will give you 5 minutes extra. Now, why did I put in that much effort when I was a student that I resolve all the questions using the new methods? Because I wanted that 5 minutes extra in the test. And that is what got me to the 99.9 percentile in my very first attempt. Okay, it didn't come easy. It's a hack, but you have to learn that hack. You have to practice that hack and make it really powerful. Okay, so art of picking numbers will definitely give you 5 minutes, can give you up to 7-8 minutes also extra in the test over other students. And please understand, this hacks that I'm telling you, why are these important? If you look at the scorecards of top scorers, for example, look at the scorecard of this student who scored a 87 in quant. He also took high time for one question, but and another question he took around 4 minutes, but he was able to manage that because a lot of questions he was able to solve under 1 minute, around 1 minute. And that's what gave him that extra time. I'm not saying it's a good thing to get like spend 7 minutes on a question. Please don't mind, like take that way. All I'm saying is that when you are able to solve questions faster because of using better methods, not because of rushing, because of using better method, you see all these fast questions are in green also. He's very accurate at that. You have the leeway, you have the luxury of spending extra time on a few questions, which are the hard questions. DI, also see the student. She has spent so much time on a few questions, but she was able to do that because of these questions over here. These questions over here. Okay? So, very important to actually learn these hacks if you really want to get a very high score. Now, there's another benefit of doing this. I'll help you understand that also with a simple analogy. A lot of you, and I want to hear a yes, no on this. How many of you feel that the biggest reason why you're not getting your target score is you make silly mistakes? Again, I'm repeating my question. How many of you feel that the biggest reason I'm not getting my target score is because I make silly errors? I want to hear a yes or no on this. Yachna says yes. Yachna is the first one to answer. What about others, guys? Christian, Rishabh, Ash, I hope you are all here with me. What about you? I have my exam tomorrow, so I'll let you know. Okay. Okay. All the best, first of all, Christian. Yeah. But yeah, don't try applying what we have learned today, all of them tomorrow, or most of them tomorrow. I generally don't recommend changing things on the 11th hour. That's not the best thing you should do. Okay. Just keep that in mind. Rohan says yes. I don't have a no yet. Samarth also says yes. Okay. I don't have a no. Possibly people who don't do it are not saying it. But what my experience is that when I ask students, why are you not getting a target score? 75 to 80% of them say, I'm making silly mistakes. But you need to understand why you are making silly mistakes. Unless you understand that, you will not be able to avoid making silly mistakes. What happens is, let's say I want to go from New Delhi to Bombay. Again, these are cities in India. Those of you who don't know about India, yeah, these are cities that are pretty far away, around 1200, 1500 kilometers away. It depends on how you travel. But yes, if I want to go from New Delhi to Bombay, what is the fastest way to reach? Now, some of you might think of a train. Now, if you use a train to reach from Delhi to Bombay, the fastest way obviously is a flight, right? You take a flight, you reach there in 2 hours. You take a train, you reach there in 16, 17 hours, or maybe 20 hours, depending on which train you take. But if you are using a train to reach from New Delhi to Bombay, and you start running inside the train, will you reach to Bombay faster? Think about it. If you're using a train to go from New Delhi to Bombay, will you reach Bombay faster if you start running inside the train? You won't, correct? If you want to reach faster from New Delhi to Bombay, you need to take a flight. And that's what you need to understand. If you're still using old techniques, regular methods of solving questions, which are longer, lengthier, take extra time, then you are pushing yourself. It's like running inside the train. It's not taking you forward. Right? It's a simple concept of physics. It's not taking you forward. So it's like running inside the train. You're just draining your energy. You're not going to reach any sooner. You're going to reach to the same station in the same time, at the same time. If you want to reach there faster, you need to use a better mode of transport. You need to use a better mode of solving the question. And that will give you the luxury to do this, to be able to give extra time to hard questions also, to be able to stay aware during the test that when should I use options, when should I not use options, should I pick numbers. You will have the luxury. You will have the luxury to spend extra time if you improve your methods. And that's what I teach my students. And that's one of the reasons many of my students have achieved great results despite coming to me after taking several attempts on the GMAT and failing. Even today, I'm super happy. One of my students, he got a score of a 655. Now, some of you might think 655 is not an amazing score, right? Like, obviously, it's not something which inspires a lot of people. But for this guy, I was super happy because he took 3 attempts before this. And in all these attempts, he was scoring 565, 575, 555. And every time he was failing to get to the score. And I can't tell you how happy I was with that 655 today. just because he put his mind through it, he focused on improving, he learned those skills, he developed those skills and got to the result. So idea is, if you want to get to the result faster, it won't help if you are just rushing through questions. You need to do the exact opposite of that. You need to be slow, you need to be calm, and to help you stay calm and slow and still complete the test in time, you need to upgrade your methods. If you upgrade your methods, automatically things will take care of itself. Okay, with that, now let's move to data insights. Right, we'll talk about two important hacks. Data insights will give you 10 minutes right away, very easily, but yes, definitely have to be mastered. First of them, solving logically versus mathematically. Very, 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 I can add many more varies in front of that. A very important skill to do DS correctly. And why am I focusing on DS first? The reason I'm focusing on DS first, and you guys need to understand this really well, is that in DS is the most commonly tested topic. You will get anywhere between 6 to 8 data sufficiency question. It is the most common topic that is tested in DI. Second reason, DS takes less time compared to other questions. If you are able to master data sufficiency, you will inadvertently do really well in DI. It's very difficult for you to actually perform poorly in DI if your DS is very strong. On the other hand, if your DS is not strong, it's very difficult for you to actually do well in DI no matter how much effort you put in. I've rarely seen a student do well in DI if their DS is poor. So DS is super critical, and it is very important to solve DS questions logically. I'm not saying all of them, but most of them. You can actually solve logically instead of solving mathematically. And I'll explain what I mean by this in just a few minutes. And there's no better way to explain this than actually doing a question. And this is the second official question that we'll be doing today. So guys, I want you to attempt this question. I'm giving you 2 minutes to solve this. We'll do exactly 2 minutes for this, nothing more, nothing less. So all the best, guys, and don't post your answers in the chat, please. I request you, so that others don't get biased. All the best, guys. Right, guys, 2 minutes are over. So you can start posting your answers in the chat now. Just like to see what you have gotten as the answer. And also let me know if you found this question easy, medium, or hard. This is an official question. Credits to of GMAT people for making such a good question. I really like this question because it kind of tests you on logical thinking. If you know this logically, this is like a cakewalk for you. It won't take you more than a minute, minute and a half max. Like minute and a half is also on the higher side possible for this question. But yes, I would like to see your answers, guys. What do you think is the answer to this question? This is a data sufficiency question, obviously. So A, B, C, D, E, the general options. Question says it's B, not sure. Okay. What about others? Yachna says it's B. Rohan says it's B. Okay. Venuja says it's A with a question mark. Okay. I like it. Thank you so much for your responses. Let's solve this. But before I get into this question, one important thing, again, I'm not doing this mathematically. There's a mathematical way to do this where you can assume the the averages as different numbers and use the weighted average equations and whatnot. But there is a very important concept of weighted average. Basically, the concept simply says that in weighted average questions, there are three things that we need to care about. Number one, the first thing that we care about is basically individual averages. The second thing which we care about is weighted average, or you want to say combined average, whatever you want to say. And the third thing we care about is ratio of quantities or weights, whatever you want to say. So in all weighted average questions, you will always have if you want to find any one of these three, you need the other two. That's a very simple principle. If you understand it this way, you'll never have a problem with weighted average questions. It will become a cakewalk for you. In any weighted average question, these three things are required to calculate or whatever. If you want to get any one of them, you need the other two. That is what is the basic concept of weighted average. And weighted average can be applied not just for averages, for anything where you're combining two groups and looking at a single parameter. Like for both the groups, you are looking at the same parameter and you're trying to look at the combined parameter also for that group. And I'll come to that as well as an example. But let's understand this. So when I read the first line of the question, it tells me that there are people in three categories. People who donated $20 or less. Okay, so let me actually write it in a slightly different way. Let me write it in numerical way. Less than $20, less than or equal to $20. People who paid $20,000 to $100,000, and people who paid more than $1,000. Now, if I see, understand this, guys, it's a data sufficiency question. It's not a quant question. I know the ratio of people. I know 1/4 of the total paid 20. I know 2/3 of the total paid 20 and 1,000. So the remaining should have paid 1,000. So I can find the ratio. I don't need to find the ratio. I just need to know whether I can find the ratio. If you're interested in finding the ratio, if you do that, you will find the ratio to be 3:8:1. Okay, that you can always find. But you don't have to, is what I'm trying to say. Don't do additional steps unnecessarily. The idea is I can find the ratio easily. It's given to me. Now it says if the average amount donated by the people who donated 20 but less than 1,000 is 180. So average of these people is 180. What was the average amount donated by people who donated 1,000 or more? So they're asking me for the average of this number. Now, if you notice, they have given me the ratio of quantity, 8:1, right? They are asking me the one of the individual averages. If they're asking me one of the individual averages, I need 2 and 3. I need the combined average and the ratio of weights. I already have the ratio of weights. So all I need to solve this question is the combined average or the weighted average. If they give me the weighted average, I will be able to solve this question. So that is what my pre-analysis is in this case. So all I'm looking at is what is the average amount that people who paid $20 or more paid. That's it. If I have that, I can answer the question. I don't need to answer the question. I can answer the question. So let's read the first statement. It says the average amount donated by the people who donated less than 1,000. That means the combination of these two, if I say the average of these two is 132. But that will help me find this one, which is not what I'm interested in. So this is not sufficient. Second one, on the other hand, it tells me average amount donated by the people who donated more than 20 was 360. That means the average of these two numbers was 360. So if the average of these two numbers was 360, I can easily find this one because I'm getting the weighted average also. Okay, so in this case, B is sufficient. And I'm happy, Christian, you did not calculate anything. That's a good thing. You don't need to do any calculation. You don't even need to write a single equation. If you have conceptual clarity, and that is the most critical thing you need if you want to solve DS questions logically. You need to have conceptual clarity. If you have conceptual clarity, trust me, guys, you will be able to solve DS questions logically. Most of them, more than 50% of them, maybe even 70-80% of them, that conceptual clarity is required. Now, you may not have it right now, but I'll tell you a process in just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, by which you can actually develop that conceptual clarity also as you move forward. Okay, but you have to try and solve questions logically rather than mathematically for you to do that. Okay, so let's look at this question, guys. This is another question which we have created at GMAT Quiz, but yes, this is very similar to something you can always expect on the GMAT. So all the best, guys. 2 minutes again. It's on you. Solve it, but don't post your answers in the chat. Sincere request. I don't want others to be basically influenced by your answer. So 2 minutes you have. I'm on mute, and we'll start solving this in 2 minutes. All the best, guys. All right, guys, 2 minutes are up, so you can start posting your answers in the chat. Feel free to go ahead. We wait to see your answers. What do you think is the correct answer for this one? A with B could be higher or lower. Yachna says A. Okay. What about others, guys? And did you find this question easy, medium, hard? I found it to be medium. I'm not sure about you. Did you find it easy, medium, hard? Okay. Just two answers. Both of them is. Yachna says easy. Christian says medium. Okay. Okay. All right. No worries. Let's solve this together. Let's see what is the real answer. Let's see. Okay. So again, I will refrain from using math equations. I'm pretty sure. I'm not saying everyone of you will be able to do it, but objective in this session is not to teach you the math way, the more, better, logical, smarter, faster way of solving. So that's what I'm going to focus on. So when I read this question, I know that in a bakery there are two goods that she's selling. It's cookies and cakes, basically, and they have given me the selling price and the cost price, and they're asking about the profit, whether the profit is greater than 600 or not. Now, if I know the selling price and the cost price, I can find the profit per item, right? This is the profit per item. So if I want to know whether it is more than 600 or not, one thing that I need to know is possibly how many cookies and how many cakes they sold. I know total is 580, but how much of each did she sell? If I somehow get an idea of that, I can solve the question. That is one thing. but it's a yes-no question. You have to be very careful with yes-no questions. Yes-no questions can actually be tricky because in a value question, you need to find one value. In a yes-no question, it is possible that you might have multiple values possible, but the answer to the question is a definitive no or a definitive yes. In that case, it is sufficient to solve it. So whenever you solve a yes-no question, you have to be extra cautious about that as a fact, that if I'm eliminating an option, I'm saying it's insufficient, I should be sure, 100% sure, that it is actually greater than or less than whatever, like that the two answers are possible. Just think of that. Okay, now let's solve this. So statement one, she sold 30 more cakes than cookies. Now, if I know the sum of the number of cookies and cakes is 580, and I know the difference is 30, I can obviously solve the two equations, and I can obviously find the number of cookies and number of cakes, and I can multiply them with the profits, and I will be able to get the profit. Now that profit will be a specific value, one specific value, whatever that is, I don't care. It has to be either greater or lesser. It can't be both. And this is what I mean by logical solving. You need to know, let's say there are 7 steps to solve the question. You should go till the step after which you are able to trace the steps logically. For example, you might just be able to get to the answer at step 3 itself, because you know after this 4 more steps will happen. But I know what will happen in all those 4 steps. For example, I showed you that example here, right? That I know the sum of the number of cookies and cakes. I know the difference from statement 1. If I use these two equations, I can find the number of cookies and cakes. So step 4 could have been like me writing the equation. Step 5 could have been me solving and finding the number of cookies and cakes. Step 6 would be multiplying with the profit and getting the profit value. And step 7 would be seeing that profit is more than 600 or not. So I have clarity around every one of these steps and what is going to happen with each of these steps. Okay. And I'm not asking you to do guesswork, guys. You have to be very confident about what you do. And there's one more thing I'll talk about. If you're not 100% confident, what should you do in your practice phase? That I'll come to. But let's go to statement 2. So statement 1 is definitely sufficient. Now let's go to statement 2. She sold more cakes than cookies. Now obviously, if it is more cakes than cookies, your mind will tell you there are multiple values possible, right? Multiple values possible. So I don't need to check this. But remember, it's a yes-no question. It's not a value-based question. So I'll have to check whether I get profit as more than 600 always, or in some cases less than 600 also. So the way I looked at it was, and in yes-no questions, this is very, very helpful. And I call this as test of extremes. Test of extremes. So what I said to myself was, let me check what is the profit that she will generate if she sold exactly same number of cakes and cookies. Now, obviously, cakes are more. But let me stress test. Let me do stress testing. What happens if she sold exactly same number of cakes and cookies? So the average profit that she will generate, if she is selling same number of cakes and cookies, the average profit per item would be average of 0.8 and 1.3. Now that is again another concept of weighted average. I'm just putting that concept here. So it is like combining two groups. If I'm combining two groups, I'm looking at the profit from each group. I can look at the combined profit by using the ratio of weights. Again, that's a concept that we teach in depth in the sessions that we do and the coursework that we have. But anyway, I'm assuming that you understand this. So if the quantity of cookies and cakes are exactly same, sold are exactly same, the profit obtained will be right in the bit center. Like it will be average of these two. So if she's making $1.05 on an average as a profit, and she's selling 580 quantities, 580 items, then her total realization of profit terms would be this multiplied with this, which will be 580 plus 29, and that is 609. So this, in this scenario, is already more than 609. It's already more than 600, sorry. So the profit has to be greater than 609 in this scenario. Now, she's selling more cakes than cookies. So if she's selling more cakes than cookies, then this average will shift more towards 1.3 because cakes is more profitable. So if she's selling more cakes than cookies, her profit is definitely gonna be greater than 609. That is something that I can say with 100% certainty. Not even, it can't be equal because they're not equal. They're more of cakes. So it will be greater than 609. Okay. So if it is greater than 609, I know the answer to this question is a definitive yes. And this statement is also sufficient. So the correct answer in this case is D. D for Delhi, whatever you want to call it, or Delaware, or yeah, Detroit. Yes, so D is the correct answer in this case. But my focus is you need to learn how to solve logically over mathematical solving. And if you do that, DS will become much easier, much more in control, and the entire DI section will come under control. Now, my point is that a lot of students that I have seen, they actually are very logical, but they don't trust themselves. They're like, okay, I'm only 90% confident about stopping at step 3. I feel that I have some doubt in my mind. I think it should be the answer, but I'm not 100% sure. Now, please understand, guys, I'm giving you a disclaimer. I'm not asking you to do guesswork. All this is very logically sound reasoning that I'm giving. You need to be very logically sound. So my recommendation is you should try and solve logically. Benefits of solving logically. There are many benefits. In your practice phase, again, I've highlighted that. Not in the real test directly you should do. That's a mistake. Christian, I don't want you to do this tomorrow. Okay? Please keep in mind. In your practice phase, it makes sense to take bets on questions where you feel 90% confident. I'm not asking you to do guesswork. Okay, I am 20% confident. Let me try and see. I'm shooting arrows in the dark. No, you should be 90% confident. You should take bets on those questions. If you feel, okay, I think because of this reasoning, this statement should be sufficient or insufficient, whatever, and you're 90% confident on that, in that case, take a bet. I've seen many people not take that bet. Many people just think that mathematical solving is safe and they do that. Now, the problem with that doing that is if you are doing continuously only solving using math, you will not learn. Understand why? See, if you are taking a conscious call, you're taking a bet with 10% doubt. Write down that doubt in your notepad. That, okay, I am taking a bet on this particular option because of this particular reason. Write that down properly. Okay? Put an asterisk, write it down. Then when you review the question, come back to it. Review the approach. See whether you got it right for the right reason or wrong for the wrong reason. And trust me, guys, in both the cases, if you get it right, it will actually strengthen your understanding. You will actually move forward because you will know that, okay, next time around I see something like this reasoning will work. And you will know why it works. It won't be guesswork. You'll be 100% confident. And if you get it wrong, you will get to know where your understanding was incorrect. So it's a win-win scenario. You win in both the cases. But if you are still just solving mathematically, you are not letting you improve. You are taking the safe route. But that may not help you improve as fast as this. But again, please remember, I'm asking you to do this in practice phase and only when you're 90% confident with the logic. If you're not confident with the logic, if you are not confident, don't take that shot. Do it mathematically. But come back to the question and see if there is a better way to logically solve it. Basically. And I ask my students to come to me, talk about that, and we discuss that in our classes. We discuss that, we help them learn whether they were actually approaching it the right way or not, basically. And this is something which can help you save a lot of time. Even if it helps you save time on half of the questions in DS or 70% of the questions, 1.5 minutes will easily save you. It can lead to a total saving of 6 minutes, which is a lot of saving in terms of real time. Okay. So in case you want to, let's say, understand how we work or what is the process we follow, feel free to reach out to us on our support email ID. There's a link on the description also to block a time on my calendar, and it's also there in the chat. Feel free to reach out. But yes, these small things, these tiny things, if you really work on those systematically, all of this will add up. All of this will add up and it will give you that outcome, that efficiency, that timing in control. Okay, so with that, let's move to the fourth hack, right reading in TPA and MSR, the role of strategizing in TPA and MSR. Now, one of the biggest reasons why people get confused with TPA or MSR questions is they're putting themselves under a lot of pressure that, okay, you know what, I have to do these questions in 2 minutes on an average, 2.5 minutes on an average. So first mistake is they don't understand how the DI section really works. And I'll cover that in the fifth hack about the test taking strategy. I'll cover that. I'll talk about that. But yes, because of that time pressure and the other questions where they are taking extra time, they rush through TPA and they make a mess of it. When you rush through a TPA or an MSR, the worst part is you don't save time, you actually kill time. I'm not saying waste time, you're killing time. You get the questions wrong, you spend extra time, you get it all wrong. The right reading strategy is very important for a TPA. So let's do a question, the role of strategizing, understand that. So this is the question in front of you guys. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to solve this because this is a TPA question. I'm going to be on mute and I request all of you, none of you to type your answers so that others don't get biased. But yes, take your time. You have 3 minutes to solve this question. All the best, guys. All right, guys. So 3 minutes are over. If you want, you can start posting your answers in the chat. More than happy to see them. And in the interest of time, I'll start solving this in another 10 seconds. So please post your answers. And also let me know if you find this question easy, medium, or hard. And since this is an official question, this is definitely easy. Like not easy, but yeah, it's easy to find which one it is. Okay, Yachna says first you have to add 1 by 2 and then subtract 1 by 6. Okay. Okay, Ankit says first is D, subtract 1 by 6, and second is to add 1 by 2. Okay. Now, tell me one thing, guys. How many of you thought that there is a lot of, like, the question is all about finding how do I reach from one number to another by doing mathematical operations? How many of you thought that? That, okay, Torrance probability to win is X is 1 by 3. I have to go from Torrance probability to win to Adia's probability to win, which is also a number, by using mathematical operations. And the question is testing me on how quickly can I do the maths and see which ones will get me to from this to that. How many of you thought of that way? It that way? Quick yes, no in this question. That is about, it's testing me on my calculations. How quickly can I do the calculations in this? And see how do I get from here to there. I would like a yes, no on this. Want to understand if you thought of it that way or not. Okay. Still waiting. Okay. Yashna says I did it that way. Thank you, Yashna. Others are all on mute. Are you worried? But anyway, that's okay. So this is one of the very common problems with this question. A lot of people start thinking that, you know what, I have to do a lot of calculations, and then they start rushing. And in that rush, they forget the context. They don't understand the context itself. Either they don't understand the context or they do too many calculations which are completely unnecessary. So in this case, it is very clearly written that the first person to get a cumulative score will win, and the next person will take a turn only when obviously the first person loses. So if Torrance's probability of winning is 1/3, the probability of Adia winning would be 2/3 into 2/3. 2/3 is her probability of scoring 20 or more points. Okay, because she's already at a 17, so she has to score 3, 4, 5, or 6, which is 4 cases out of 6, so that is 2/3. So this part is her probability of scoring 20 or more points, and the first part is the probability of Torrance losing on the last bet. Okay, now many of you wouldn't have written it as 2 into 3 into 2 into 3, which is 4/9. Many of you would have written it as 2/3, and you would have started thinking about converting 1/3 to 2/3 by doing all the mathematical operations. Okay, that is one error. Second error is those of you who also wrote 2/3 into 2/3 would have thought, how do I get from 1/3 to 4/9? How do I get from there to that? And you start doing all the math operations. So this is what you should avoid. In TPA, if there is an estimation required, first think logically what's happening. If you notice very carefully, what are we doing? We are seeing Torrance losing. Torrance losing means 1 minus Torrance winning, and that we are multiplying with 2/3. So what is the probability of Torrance winning? That is x. So we have to subtract from 1 and we have to multiply by 2/3. That's all we need to do. And just sink it in, guys. If GMAT really wanted you to do the math, if you wanted you to test can this person do the math and understand how can 4/9 be achieved by going from 1/3 doing different operations, they wouldn't give you this answer. They wouldn't give you this answer. They are not trusting your calculations. All they're trusting is, can you stay calm and composed and decipher why are you doing what you are doing? So why did you get to 4/9? Because you considered Torrance losing first, and then you considered Adia scoring 2 or like 20 points or more. Are you able to break down complex things into smaller bits and pieces? Because that's an important skill that you will need to develop or have as a future manager, because you will be working on complex projects, complex assignments. You need to be able to dissect them, make it simple for everyone else to understand. So are you able to do that under time pressure or not is what they are trying to test. Because very clearly, if they were trying to test your mathematical calculations, they would have given a different answer. So my experience of working with TPA is very simple. The more you do the calculations, the more you make it calculation heavy or you rush through it, and the less you strategize, the more difficult it gets. Trust me, I've seen students spend 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes on this question, still not get it right. But if you just stay calm and composed and understand where you are getting confused, this entire sentence over here, this entire sentence that I have put in the bracket is a very confusing sentence just put there on purpose to derail you from thinking about RDS probability properly. But if you think about RDS probability properly without worrying about the meaning of that sentence and then read the sentence, you will actually find the question to be very simple. So you need to be able to also understand what is that is confusing me in a question and hold back on that for a minute. Just put it aside for a minute. Understand the construct. Strategize before you solve. Super critical to do that. Very important to do that. So the right strategy, reading strategy in TPA is basically to strategize before you solve. And if you strategize before you solve, trust me, you can easily save 2 minutes in a TPA question. And 2 questions, you can easily save 4 minutes. And I'm not just talking about TPA, I'm talking about TPA and MSR both. There are so many MSR questions where I've seen where it is very calculation heavy. You read the MSR question, you see a math heavy question, you dive right into solving. You dive right into doing all the math. And you end up burning 3.5, 4 minutes on that question, that one question. Like MSR reading time is separate. And later on, if you observe very carefully, there was a very small inference. Had you drawn that inference, that question would have been solved in 1 minute, 30 seconds. And there are so many quant MSR questions like that, which I've seen. Again, in the interest of time, I can't show you all of that in a session. But you need to understand how to basically logically infer in that time itself. Okay. Rishabh is asking, why is it not AD? Rishabh, AD, there can't be two right answers to any question. If you do AD, you will get to a different result. You will not get to 4/9 for sure. If you want me to confirm that, I can do that quickly. So if you want to do AD, if you do 1/3 plus 1/2, you will get what? 5/6, right? I'm just doing the check, yes. And then D, if you subtract 1/6 from this, you get 4/6. You don't get 4/9. We need 4/9. Okay. So if you are doing AD, you are thinking only about Adia's probability of scoring 20 points out of 20 points or more. You're not considering Torrance probability of losing. Torrance has to lose first, then only Adia will get the chance to even score. Okay, and that's what I was telling you. You are not understood the context in that case because the question is confusing. Okay, coming back again where we were. So you can save that time by doing the strategizing part. Okay, so let's move to the last hack, the timing strategy followed by toppers. Now, I'm actually okay. Just give me 1 second, guys. I think the title of that slide is a little misplaced. Let me just update that. I hope it takes effect now that I roll it up. Yeah, it does. Great. So key lessons for timing. Again, I have a very detailed stress taking strategy video that I have done in depth on this topic. If you want to go through a very detailed video, understand why am I saying what am I saying, because obviously right now I'm just telling you the hack. I'm not going into the why part of it. If you want to go to the why part of it, understand that, do watch this video. It's a very detailed video. I've covered the why. I've explained through examples, shown real scorecards to help you understand why what I'm going to say next is something that works basically. Okay, but yes, I'm going to talk about only the key lessons, not the why part from that. So let's start with the key lessons for the timing strategy that toppers follow, that my students have implemented and improved their scores by 100 points, 150 points in very short span of time. Obviously, other things also have worked for them, but these lessons are also really helpful. So let's start with DI first, because that's what is the most misunderstood section in the GMAT. In DI, the first 15 to 16 questions is all that matters if your target score is up to 84 and 85. And just to be clear, 85 is a 98 percentile score. It's a very high score considered on DI, very high score. So if your target is up to 84 and 85, first 15 and 16 questions is all that matters. What that means is you need to attempt all 20, obviously. You should not leave anything unattempted. But the idea is you should focus basically on the first 15, 16 and doing them properly. And the remaining, even if you guess, it won't impact as much if your accuracy is super high in the first 15, 16. The higher the accuracy, the better the score. That's how it works. But please understand, I am not saying you should overthink in these questions, or just because you will spend extra time on those questions, your score will be high. That's a very wrong thought process. The score wouldn't improve by doing extra thinking or overthinking in these questions. It is important that you actually not cut corners. Give each question its due time. Don't think it like that. Piyush has told us to give extra time on the first 15, 16. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is don't cut corners. Just give your 100%. Do every question on its merit. And uh, in verbal, similarly, first 18 to 19 questions is all that matters. If your target score is up to 85, 86 in that range. And don't reread or overanalyze initial questions. A lot of people make this mistake. They think, okay, first 18 to 19, I need to get right. So what I should do is I should give extra time to those. I'm not saying that. I'm not asking you to reread. I'm not asking you to overanalyze. Overthinking is actually worse than rushing. Okay, so please understand, give a question its due time. Don't give extra time. Don't rush through. Okay, so if you give focus on first 18, 19 questions, do them properly. Remaining you can guess, you'll still get a high score if you do very well on the first 18, 19. And by very well I mean up to 1 or 2 mistakes max. Okay, now some general lessons. You need to start strong in every section. Sorry guys, by having a bit of a cough and cold here, so please bear with me. So you need to start really, really strong. A poor start can derail the score. First 3 questions set the tone of the section. So the first 3 questions actually are evaluated very closely and actually determine what is the difficulty level of the section that you're going to get. Broad level, at a broad level. Obviously, it is more adaptive afterwards also, but the level of adaptiveness is not as much as it is in the first 3. The first 3 are very critical, and the level of adaptiveness is also different across sections. So in quant, in DI and verbal, it's more adaptive than quant, and that's why in quant, all 20 questions will actually make an impact if you're really looking at a high score. But idea is first 3 you should not make a mistake in, especially in quant. If you make a mistake in the first 3 questions, that is a problem. You might not even get hard questions to see. But at the same point, I don't mean to say that you should be stuck on a question or overthink. Please understand, you don't get a question right by thinking you will get it right, because obviously you will think for every question to be correct, right? You don't want to cut any corners anywhere. But idea is don't overthink, overanalyze. Just don't cut corners is all I'm trying to say. Don't rush through questions in the beginning. You are making a big mistake if you do that. And don't be stuck on a question. Move forward if a question is out of bound. And the last thing, which is very critical, guys, this is something which will easily help you save 5 minutes in the test taking strategy part. You should utilize your last 3-4 minutes well in every section. A lot of people make this mistake that in the end, they try to spread time over too many questions. For example, let's say you are in a situation where you have 5 minutes remaining and you have 3 quant questions remaining. 3 quant questions remaining. I've seen so many cases where people try to do all 3 questions in those 5 minutes and they get all 3 wrong. All 3 wrong. Okay? I always recommend my students, towards the end, you should look at 2 minutes per question for quant and verbal and 3 minutes per question for data insights. Remember, 2 minutes per question for quant and verbal, 3 minutes per question for data insight. So if I have 5 minutes remaining, no matter how many questions are there, I will only do 2 questions properly. That's what I think. Do less, but do well. So if you do 2 questions properly, you get 2 of them right, both of them right, that's a bigger win than trying to spread yourself and try to get all 3 right. Trust me, guys, I've seen cases where people had 7 questions in the end, 10 minutes remaining in verbal as well as quant, and they tried to spread themselves too thin and try to attempt all 7 of them, got all 7 wrong or 6 wrong. Instead of that, had they focused only on 4 questions, did them properly, that would have gotten them at least 30-40 points extra. You would not end up wasting your entire last part of the test. You will end up utilizing that properly if you take that last strategic call correct. Okay, so these are the 5 hacks that will get you that 10 extra minutes, even if you apply 40% of them. If you apply completely, you might have 25 minutes extra in the entire test. And minimum score improvement, 50 points, could go up to 100 points also. Depends totally on how well you applied, well you learned it. Okay? But if, guys, in case you look at personalized advice, obviously I've tried to share as much as possible from my standpoint. But if you're looking at personalized advice and want to work with our team at GMAT Viz, we really do some really good work with different students and have helped them achieve their great success. You can always reach out to our team over here, and like feel free to reach out to me on this. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm more than happy. Okay. I have a question from Zay, so let's take it up. He says, I believe this could be a little misleading. It's just counterintuitive. Why would the algorithm not penalize you for the last questions as much? Official test makers affirm that each question matters. So Zay, I don't say something without reasoning, and that's why I said that I have this video where I've covered this. I'm telling you what I see in the scorecards. Last 10 questions, last questions don't matter. I'm not saying that. Please read my slides properly. I've said very clearly and I've laid them down very clearly that 15 to 16 questions is all that matters if your target is up to 84, 85. It is not percentile, guys. It is the raw score. 84, 85 means 97 to 98 percentile. So if say your target is 100 percentile in DI, this won't work for you. You need to get everything right. And that's what GMAT, like people who have created the test will say. Right? Official test makers will say that because each question matters. If you want to get to a 99.9, 100 percentile, those will matter. I'm totally with them on that, right? But how much will they matter? That's the point. What is the relative performance of that? So there are so many success stories, so many results that I've analyzed. At least like I've looked at 1,000 scorecards, and there are just one or two outliers that I see from this, and there are reasons for those outliers also, all of which I can't discuss right now. So you can watch the video. You can feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to explain. But yes, that's how it works. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. But if anyone has any other question, feel free to ask me. More than happy. But yes, if you want to discuss it one-on-one with me, if you want to understand how we can help you with your prep strategy or something, feel free to schedule a call on my calendar. I'm just going to share the link for those who don't have it. But yes, you can always find it in the description below as well. Okay. So I hope you guys liked the session today. If you really liked it, do give this video a like or thumbs up. This was focused on GMAT hacks that can help you save a lot of time and get a high score. But if you're looking at basically some score improvement strategies, what are the other things or traps that GMAT tests you on? I've also done a score improvement strategy session which talks about other things about how should you plan your preparation if you're looking at a retake and those kind of things also. I'm going to give you the link for that. So it will be a great watch if you want to check it out. It will help you understand how to strategize based on where you stand in terms of your current preparation and what all you need to do to get to your target score. So it will help you kind of create a baseline study plan based on that. So feel free to reach out, get that, like check out the video, and feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. Okay. So I don't see any other questions in the chat, and thank you so much, Zay. I'm happy to know that you found the session helpful. So all the best, guys, for your GMAT attempt, and follow the strategies. Keep following our content, and I'm sure you'll improve a lot. All the best, guys. Thank you so much.